So welcome everyone to our panel discussion featuring a stellar lineup of experts who are here, at the forefront of sustainability, public policy, workforce innovation, and STEM. We are privileged to host Kapila Mehta of Schneider Electric, Ms. Kalpana Gopalan from Government of Karnataka, Ms. Shreya Prakash of FlexiBees, and Mr. Ramachandran of Infosys Knowledge Institute. Their diverse experiences and insights promise to make this a thought-provoking session on breaking barriers and fostering innovation across industries. We also have our esteemed professor, Ms. Romna Gulshani, pitching in as moderator to make this session even more dynamic and even more enriching. I'll hand over to ma'am now. Thank you.
Thank you, Simran. And thank you and welcome to all the panelists to this session. Quick introduction of myself. I'm Professor Romana. I've been visiting faculty with IIM Bangalore, an early stage academician, and always looking forward to have discussions around topics such as sustainability, inclusivity. Right, it's very interesting, and in fact, more also from the academic sense as well, to bring in all these discussions for students always enriches our classroom discussions as well. So I think I'll open up the discussion for the panelists, and I'm going to really ask you an open-ended question in the start by saying that, what does really inclusivity mean for all of you in your respective fields? And also, how do you think it contributes towards organizational or societal goals? Let's start with you, Kapila.
Just trying to unmute. You can hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So for me, the inclusiveness means a sense of belonging, and where you have a psychological safe environment where you are free. One person is free to voice out their opinion without being fear of being judged, right? So then you create an environment of inclusiveness. It also refers to the practice of keep on accommodating and involving people coming from different background. And when we say that to create that culture of belongingness, it is required to have respect in both of the aspect, and then the shared mutual value, respect, and support system that individual can create. And it takes a time to build that environment. But when this environment is being built, you embrace diversity. So for me, the diversity is one element which is needed for variety of region and the diversity of many kind, age, race, and of course, gender. But at the same time, when you create the sense of belongingness and when you bring them together, that's the inclusiveness for me.
Okay.
If that answers, there was a second question also along with that.
Yes. So if you could, include maybe examples from your own organizational context and help us understand how does, achieving diversity goals help you, helps the organization overall.
So starting from, I was privileged to work in all my organization, the 3 organizations in my career. And very pleased to one or another thing that has been done over the time for the policies which has been made to make sure that the things are defined. And there is a policies which creates a boundary of the system so that everybody is getting nurtured within the system. Just to give an example, and my personal experience, and that where it touches a lot more of me, and that's what it brings a urge to give back to the world which has given me. So when I was conceived with my first and the only pregnancy, and there was a lot of complications within the process. I was a hardware engineer during those times. And when you are electronic engineer, you need laboratories, you need setup where it's work from home is difficult. However, then my manager, not a female one, but the person whom I still respect, and I would like to call out the name, Mr. Prasad Chadga, he enabled the work from home for me. And it was during a process because he went a step up to fight with the organization to enable that ecosystem and trust on me that I can deliver. And that brought a lot of something in me. And I think I could have not done that much during the pregnancy time, but that thought that he has done something and I have to give back. And I did a lot. During that time, he asked me to come at least once, in the office. And I was very sappled, like, why he's calling me. He was so good so far. Why he's even calling me to the office? I went there. Let's have face-to-face discussion because it's not going well, maybe. So, but when I go there, I realize they have invited me to give me Employee of the Year award. Now, this something has built a trust in me that you should not be stopping a promotion. You should not be judging a person differently if the person is not available to be physically present. And that's a sense of inclusiveness, right? Because you have created that culture that, having said that, the physical working culture was so much in that time, but making sure that the person is not onboarded, but you are valuing the contribution and supporting the achievement together. So that's inclusiveness, one example for me, Romana.
That's great. Okay, how about you, Dr. Kalpana? So what does inclusivity mean for you?
First of all, thank you for having me here. And
I think there's a network issue. We can't hear you. Dr. Kalpana, we are unable to hear you.
Always come through a shared involvement in the task at hand. So regardless of the composition of the group, regardless of, I don't know really, what is the problem?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me
we
now?
can hear you fine, but we missed. We missed the
leave
earlier
and
part.
then come back again. Please go on.
We can hear you now.
I really don't know what is the problem. Yeah, Pratmesh.
Okay. Simran, can you connect?
Now you can hear?
Sorry, ma'am.
Okay. I think you had muted me, I suppose. I think there was some problem there. Because Anyway, thank you. I just... Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
For me, basically this comes out of inclusivity comes out of a shared involvement in the task at hand.
Okay.
So that is, I've always found that regardless of who you're working with, regardless of gender, regardless of age, that always brings bonds people together. And in public service, you have this, the extra motivation that you're doing something for the people. And when you are doing something together, when the task of the leader is probably to have a consultative kind of approach, so that everyone feels involved and everyone is able to contribute to the task at hand. And so this has worked for me across the board wherever I've worked. And we're asking Kapila for an example, and I have this favorite example. This was, I think, the year 2015, and I was the additional chief secretary of food department.
Okay.
And food is, we are the department which buys grains. So today MSP is, the latest academic fad. In those days, way back in 2015, hardly anyone knew of MSP, but we were toiling on. MSP purchases used to go on every year. So we were preparing the cabinet note to take the cabinet approval. And it so happened that that day I had missed my breakfast. And so halfway through the uh, halfway through the process I got hungry. And the way we work is, government is under resourced, so one computer, 20 of us surrounding. And I used to type, someone do it. It was, everyone would contribute their bit. And this is going on, I am feeling hungrier and hungrier. And so I kept interrupting. Sometime after 12 or so, I said, why don't we stop for lunch, and we'll get back together and we'll do it.
Yeah.
But no one stopped. It just went on. So half an hour goes, and again I repeat that, can we stop and then let's have lunch? And I don't tell them that I am hungry, but, I just keep saying that. And this went on, at intervals, until one of my subordinates, and his name is Narendra, and I still tease him about it. He got so very impatient because he was completely into that, the job of creating that cabinet note. We needed to take approval and all that. He said, I'll tell you in Kannada, and then I'll translate in English. He said, Madam, ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ, ನಾವು ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. If you're hungry, you go and have lunch, we'll finish the job. So that, in that moment, the gender barrier disappeared, the barrier of superior and subordinate disappeared. Narendra was then a deputy director, I was additional chief secretary. There were about 5 levels between us, and everything was just forgotten. And of course, then we finished the job, and that year's MSP was done. But I always remember this, and I still tease him about this, that, for you, that was so much more important that you just forgot who you're talking to. And so I think that that creates a bond. I found this very true in public service. I've also found this to be true to an extent in academia. The latest task which I am doing is preparing policy briefs for Coimbatore industry on various issues which Coimbatore industry is facing. And I find that, here I'm talking with CEOs, managers, professionals, and they give the inputs. I only prepare the report. I'm not the expert. It's their expertise I'm tapping into. And they are just so forthcoming when they contribute to what we are doing. And that way we were able to influence to an extent the budget decisions of the Tamil Nadu government. So that is what inclusiveness means to me.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
hope you heard me.
Yes, we heard you. Yeah, we all heard you. Okay, coming to Mr. Ramachandran. So, what does inclusivity mean for
Thank
you?
God.
Sure, Dr. Kalpana. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So, for me, inclusivity in one word is about meritocracy. Right? So, meritocracy is when we live in an unbiased world. We don't go by gender, language, region, or nationality, and we go purely by merit. So, if you ask me for examples, I've come across several examples. Good organizations always encourage meritocracy. But one very interesting incident, or I would say experience in my life, I was fortunate to be the chief editor, work on this book initiative called Women in STEM, which was initiated by CII. So I had an opportunity to talk to amazing leaders. So how does meritocracy help in inclusivity? Basically, it's about women, right? One half of the human race, one half of the population. It has brought out amazing leaders. So I'll talk to you about, many of them were from academics, many of them were entrepreneurs, but I'll give you some examples just to tell you about the diversity and the level of accomplishment they have done. So what I saw from them was that they went far beyond their call of duty. We talk about work-life balance, achieving things in our career, but they saw a bigger purpose in their life. So literally from rocket science to defense to life sciences, automobiles, within STEM itself, we can extrapolate it to legal, finance, other areas. So for example, Dr. Tessie Thomas, who was mentored by Dr. Abdul Kalam himself. So she is called the Agni Putri, how she led our Agni missile project, or Suchitra Ella ma'am at that time when Biocon was developing the Covaxin vaccine. She was so enthusiastic when the first batch of Covaxin vaccines got shipped out of the Hyderabad facility. Hema Annamalai, who pioneered the Ampere electric vehicle EVs even before we spoke about it as an entrepreneur. Dr. Rajashri in ISRO, how she spent a few months in Antarctica playing with penguins. So many such examples. Dr. Rajalakshmi in DRDO and how she developed the aerial surveillance system. Dr. Anuradha developing electricity in remote villages in Orissa using vegetable oil. Dr. Rashi Gupta, who's called the battery wali. So I can keep going on. So more than 50 such leaders within STEM I had an opportunity to interview. It gave me a very good perspective into the challenges that they face. But more than that, these are role models. Probably we should spend some
So
more
I'll just
effort.
talk briefly about
Groups like
how
this should,
the road
spend
infrastructure
more effort
has
to
been
create
delivered to
awareness
you
about
with all
such
this
leaders
work.
and the amazing
So
work they do.
as it's obvious.
We'll talk about it more in detail as we go ahead. But in short, inclusivity for me is about becoming a meritocratic society in corporates, in our overall society. I gave some examples and the wonderful example, the experience that I went through for the CII book. So it basically makes sure that it benefits our society, it benefits our country, because there are so many such hidden leaders among us. And once we are unbiased, it helps them, it helps us. So that's my take on inclusivity. Yeah, back to you, Dr. Ramana.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Shreya now. Shreya, tell us more about your organization as well. I read about it. Give us a bit more context and also tell us what inclusivity means for you.
Sure, sure. Thank you for having me, and good evening, everyone. Very nice to hear everybody's thoughts. So for me, inclusivity is equal access to opportunity, right, for every member of society, no matter what group or segment they belong to, and that does entail, by I think historically how we've seen society move. It does entail having to systematically give a little bit of an extra push to certain segments of society because there are systemic disadvantages, that people as groups have experienced. So yeah, to bring everybody, to more or less the same level, to give them the opportunity rather to compete equally. That is what inclusivity would mean to me. And it's actually the biggest example that I can give of inclusivity in my personal life is the organization that I am building with my co-founders. So the name of my company is FlexiBees, and I was a happy corporate professional a few years back, working in Unilever and loving my job. But then I realized, along with my co-founders, so we are three batchmates from IIM Bangalore, in fact, and and the three of us, came to the same realization that it is very tough for women in this country, across the world, but specifically in this country, it's a bit of a crisis. Tough for qualified women to be able to reach their full potential in the workforce. And while we keep hearing that more and more women are getting educated, the workforce numbers don't reflect that at all. And there is a lot of talk about diversity. We've been hearing diversity since the past, 10 years, 15 years, and it's opened up minds. But somehow, through some reason or the other, it's not reflected in workforce numbers. So we decided to put our energies behind that, and we realized that yes, while societal changes are happening, while women, while society changes the way that it looks at gendered roles, for example, and that mindset becomes pervasive across, when a young girl is growing up and a young boy is growing up, so that when they grow up, they lead their lives differently. And all of these things will take a generation, if not more, to really percolate. And while these changes are happening, why not we look at ways and bridges in which we can quickly bring more women back to the workforce. And that is what we do at FlexiBees. We use flexibility, which means, part-time, project-based and remote jobs, and really meaningful jobs to help women balance their multiple responsibilities. Because it is a fact across the world that 75% of unpaid work is done by women. a big chunk of caregiving is done by women. And given that is the way it is, the gendered roles that I spoke of, which will take time to change, what do we do very quickly to help them, ambitious, educated, talented women, to be able to participate in the workforce and reach the full potential? That's basically what we do at FlexiBees. We bring women back to the workforce through the lever of flexibility. And on the other hand, of course, we help businesses hire from this extremely talented pool, an untapped pool, in a way that is beneficial to their top line and their bottom line. It helps them do well, apart from helping them do good. So this is what we've been building at FlexiBees, and that's the biggest example in my life. And I would like to give just one more example of, the second question that you asked, that is it important for society to be inclusive? And, again, talking about gender, because inclusivity, of course, is bigger than gender. There are multiple forms of inclusivity, but I'm talking about gender here. We look at what's happening to South Korea, right, as a society. That society is known to be extremely inequitable towards women, especially, in terms of their workforce, in terms of, the societal expectations that are there. And today, the birth rate in Korea is amongst the lowest, or in fact, the lowest in the world. So much so that that society is in danger of becoming extinct in, the next few generations. So this is what happens when we don't create solutions for, every member in society to be able to reach the potential that they have. So yes, that's from me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the insights. So let me now, before we actually come up with and discuss, what is the way forward to ensure gender inclusivity, diversity, or even helping women, reach up to leadership roles. Let's first talk about, what do you all think are still the existing challenges or barriers for gender inclusivity, or women participation at leadership roles? Let's again start with Kapila, you. And first, let's talk about, what do you think, or even if you can tell us if there are any unique challenges that you have found, which might be insightful to all of us. And also then you can tell us if there are any measures that you think can be done, or if you're already involved in them, that would be helpful.
Correct. So, as I was hearing Dr. Kalpana, Shreya, and also Ramchandran, we did mention that in our life we come across a similar incidents where we do believe that inclusivity is existing and it is something to cherish about. While I also agree with Shreya when she was mentioning about that we are talking about gender diversity from years and years and decades now to talk about, but when it reflects into the topic, it's very, very rare. I'm very proud to be working in an organization like Schneider Electric, which has been awarded with Lighthouse by World Economic Forum last year, because we ran a particular program. It's called Pay Equity Program. So to make sure that the gender pay balance equalify. And I, being a manager, I have seen personally this extra budget coming to me, ensure that we can create the right compensation value for our women employee whose gender, whose pay equity was not at par of the other gender. So those things still exist, and it really needs a conscious effort of society, organization to create the right policies. If we talk about quick challenges, and it's a right question to start from, that whether those challenges exist or it's only in the mindset of the people. So I divide into two pieces. So though today still there are some challenges, and we because of the panel discussion is more about the leadership role talking. So there are some gender biases and stereotypes which keeps coming. For example, a week before when I was taking a flight, and I was excited to see a lady pilot, and all of a sudden a boy next to me was really nervous. He said, "Oh, you see that, the lady pilot there, will we be safe?" I mean, those kind of stereotyping keeps coming. And it's not because of that curiosity of the boy. He was very young, and I think that with the right upbringing, that stereotyping will be changed. But I really would like to create that conscious effort and ecosystem which creates and goes out of that stereotyping. So one is which is stuck in the head. And the second is within women, when we know that how does it work? You really need a right mentorship. You need a right network opportunity. So definitely something within you, you're competent enough, your competency, which defines you who you are, tells that it is the right thing to do, but it really requires a whole ecosystem to make you develop. And it's not only for women, it's for men also to grow into network, to have the right networking opportunity, to have the right mentorship. Then the women also suffer a lot many times, and that came in many of my roundtables with women, junior women who are just starting family or who has just going through a life change milestone in their life. The work-life balance issues hit women more than a man, and that is changing over the period of time, but it still exists. Then you have in some organization you also come across the career development and training program, the not equal access available. And this is reflecting with limited representation in senior leadership in many of the organization. But at the same time, as I was saying, that how much conscious effort the organization is making, a government is making, or policies are getting defined, meaning a number of human leadership mandatory in the board, makes it defined that how you are getting it done. But one thing which I have also seen, and it's something to mention, sometimes women do not need this extra attention. They also, this also create another kind of stereotype. And we have a lot of program in our organization, this organization, my previous organization, and I'll talk about the previous organization again. Few women came and said that, I really don't want to get into this program, because whenever we are going to that program and our training is happening, our team members are saying, oh, something women is specific you are getting trained on. So while it's important that we create those policies, program, platform to give women equal challenges, the sensitivity around that, why it is needed and what is making that extra thing for everyone, and also not to do overdo just for the sake of coming into the D&I topic, so that we forget our other gender, because it is about diversity and inclusivity. It is not about one to another, right? So you have to have that right ecosystem balance where you are not making an impact on one to another, but together bringing for the holistic approach.
Great. I think that's very helpful. Some very interesting points. So coming to Dr. Kalpana, right, and talking about the public sector. So what do you think are still challenges, especially when you talk about gender diversity or women participation at leadership, at critical roles? And also, if you can tell us some things that have been successes for you personally.
See, the thing is, when you speak of challenges in the public sphere, there's nothing overt. Overtly, we are all equal. We are our entitlements are the same. Our pay structure is the same. We don't get thrown out if we avail of maternity leave. In fact, government is a very good employer that way. We get not just maternity leave, but we get post childbirth. We get additional leave. Now you get parental leave for the father also. So in all sorts of ways, government is a very good employer insofar as this is concerned. Where the bias operates is in a more subtle way. So possibly the way you're looked at, the way you're commented over a period of time, though the responsibility and the authority with which you are vested makes you forget that. So I when I go out, I take one last look at the mirror. I just I still wear a bindi, as you can see. I just adjusted.
We can't hear you, Dr.
After that, I forget that I'm a woman. I'm an officer, and I an officer, and that kinds of it rubs off on everyone around me. So that is Can you hear me? The screen is frozen. So that kind of, that, yeah, the screen, the network is really very poor. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there are subtle forms of bias. And interestingly, this is not just with the men, but with the women as well. Uh, yeah, the bias operates not just in the minds of men, but in the minds of the women with whom you work as well. And so the sisterhood which we speak of very proudly, in forums like this, I feel that very frequently that is trumped by other considerations, maybe caste, very important factor in our societal relations, though we may, speak that it no longer exists, it does exist. And all other kinds of bias, personal interrelations. So the kind of support system or sisterhood which one would expect, especially in public meeting in a corporate setup. We are all, independent power centers in our own way, or responsibility centers in our own way. As you know, it depends on how you look at it. But that still operates. So that is something I think which we need to, overcome. And when that is perhaps, I'm mistaken here, but I found this to be more prevalent in the more educated classes. With the working classes, I worked as I worked in literacy. I worked in as additional chief secretary, labor, and I found that there's a very strong bond. Among garment workers, for instance, among literacy volunteers. Here, there's they work in the outreach program. They develop a very strong sense of fraternity, which I think we get more isolated as we become more educated, and we tend to work in our own silos. So that I think is where that's one thing where we can really overcome that and try to create a support system. It is not a structural thing; it's just a relationship thing where you can extend a helping hand, whether it's to a man or a woman. You just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Excellent point. I think Dr. Kalpana also brought about insights in terms of, firstly, yes, overcoming bias, being aware, acknowledging and overcoming these biases, but also more in terms of what helps is having a support system. And I think Kapila also talked about building relationships, connections. So let me come to Mr. Ramachandran. So what do you think? Firstly, do you also believe that, one of the measures to actually improve gender diversity is help women foster these relationships, or does it really help overcome some of the barriers?
Yeah, Dr. Amala. So I strongly believe in networking. So talking about challenges, I may not be fully qualified to talk about it being on the other side, but I'll talk about some general challenges, and I'll probably talk about a few counterintuitive thoughts which I had. So earlier I spoke about meritocracy leading to inclusivity. So one way that we are moving towards a meritocratic society is we are becoming more and more of a skill-based corporate setup, right? Not just corporates, even academics. So all of us are observing it, right? It's more than the degrees that we bring. It's what is the hands-on skill sets that we bring to the table. So that in a way offers a level play field, not just across genders, but across other divisions also in the society. So one more thing I'll talk about, one challenge that usually we come across is that people hit a glass ceiling, right? So again, it's not just for women, most of this apply for both men and women. So traditionally, we look at career as going up the career ladder, right? There is only vertical growth. There is promotion with tenure. As you spend more time in role, you are eligible for promotion. But all that is changing in the transformation that we see today. So today I see careers as more of T-shaped careers, right? Where you need both depth to go into a particular domain, whatever be your domain. At the same time, you also need breadth where you try different functions, different roles, right? So good organizations always encourage their employees to try out different roles. I have been a recipient of it in Hindustan Motors, where I started my career. I worked from shop floor to the mezzanine floor, where we call it manufacturing and executing systems, right? So good organizations encourage you to try out different roles. So today careers are becoming more T-shaped. So designations are not really so important. All of us need to be aspirational. We need to grow, but again, growth need not be in the traditional sense, growing up the career ladder, right? It can be across breadth where we try different roles. And one more observation post the pandemic is that organizations are becoming flatter now because a hybrid mode of working is better. That
Yeah.
again helps women. So some of the Dr. Kalpana and a few others spoke about a break in career. Now even men have that issue, and there are organizations which encourage women to come back after a break. They are given a chance. Now talking about hybrid working, communication becomes a challenge there. So that's where again the hierarchical organization is transforming into more of a flat organizational structure. So that again helps bring about a level play field. So with organizations becoming flatter, it's much easier to uh, define a T-shaped career for yourself. So uh, those are some of my observations, and all said and done, many of these skill sets also becoming obsolete. So all of us need to believe in lifelong learning, men or women. And again, I was fortunate to write a book called Neo Skilling for Digital Transformation with Professor L. Prasad from IIM Bangalore before he retired. So all of us talk about this glass ceiling. So my counterintuitive approach is that probably it is an imaginary glass ceiling. Maybe we are just imagining it. If we look out, if we look around us within our own organization, I'm sure we will find many more opportunities. So again, like I said, may not be qualified to talk about the actual challenges faced by women, but these are some of the common challenges. So these could be some ideas to make sure that we overcome these challenges. If we believe in a skill-based system, if we believe in lifelong learning, if we believe in reskilling ourselves to match the skill sets that the market needs, and we should also be willing to let go and unlearn skill sets which are no longer required in the market. So I think, so those are some of my thoughts.
Absolutely, I think, yeah, very insightful. And I think, yeah, as you said, it equally applies to men and women both, right? When you talk about upskilling, especially relevant for today's changing world, right? Wherein we talk about the complete change in terms of the nature of work as well. So excellent point. So Shreyas, you tell us in terms of, you have talked about your organization, right? And you already have a philosophy of including women who are maybe coming back from a break or who are looking at flexible work arrangement. But at the same time, do you face challenges when you're looking at really skilled people, right? And then you're also looking at meeting these requirements, right? Are you able to achieve, maybe in terms of your hiring goals, are you able to meet them? What do you think?
Absolutely, we are able to meet them and meet them better. I would say. I mean, like I said today, women. I mean, we all know that, right? This audience also, I see a lot of women. So women are getting educated. More women are, entering graduation, post graduation colleges. Women are even entering the workforce in big numbers, but there is a leaky pipeline there, right? Which also connects to your question on leadership. And a lot of women drop out. It's a huge problem. A lot of women drop out. So definitely they have the ambition and they have the skill, but they don't have the ability to participate in the traditional workforce as we have defined it, which is the 9 to 9 workforce where you need to go to a central location. And even in this, the knowledge economy that we are part of today, we still expect that people should come to irrespective of what their life looks like, we should come to that location and we should spend 10 hours at that location and 2 hours in commute. It is essentially the structure of work which excludes the very opposite literally of inclusivity, which excludes this workforce, this segment of the workforce. So it is extremely skilled. So we, for example, we walk the talk as a business ourselves, as a small business, a growing business ourselves. We hire from our own pool. We have around a 50 plus strength internally. All of them are women because we are in the business of helping women. So all of them are women. Many of them are returning to work after a career break. Some of them are choosing to work flexibly because that's how they want to lead their careers. And all of them are extremely skilled, extremely professional, extremely ambitious. So I would say that when you hire a woman and you give a woman the opportunity to design her work arrangement as per her life, you're actually getting far more loyalty. You're getting amazing fire in the belly. You're getting the ethic and professionalism that inherently women have, or they're conditioned to have. So I would say that we actually are a couple of steps ahead of everybody else who doesn't look at this school, in fact, in the same way that we do.
All right. Excellent. Okay, so I think I'll ask another question before we open up for the audience. So this question is again for the entire panel. So, keeping in mind what we have discussed so far, how do you really envision the future of leadership and even in terms of team compositions, with the idea of inclusivity and especially gender inclusivity? What do you see the future is going to be like? Let's start with Kapila.
So for sure, the more and more ESG awareness is coming, and with that, the organization holistically are taking care of environment, social governance, all the parameter. And in that, when we talk about governance and social aspect, the gender balance, the pay equity, and everything comes on the table. So more and more organizations are required to report, to take action. It would be by compulsion be better. So more and more countries are joining hand, which is good news. The regulations are supporting. And this is all going to be for a world which we think would be a world where we can have an environment where people are not judging each other. There is an equal opportunity available for everyone, where we do not have to put an extra program for a women specifically, and then we have the opportunity which is coming to anyone and everyone. You are not having the hiring only for women specific roles, but anybody who is equally contender can apply. That means we have achieved a right gender balance. We have promoted an society, an ecosystem which is supporting the leakage, which Shreya just talked about, so that you are not letting those people go. But all this is for what? Because when we know, and more you go into any study like Deloitte and many studies which has happened, more and more diversity when you bring on table, you create already a collaborative culture. You create a culture where you are having the innovation is on the peak when you are talking about the inclusivity. So I believe the future would be where we would not be having this specific program, but we would be talking about how do we multiply the opportunity, and we already have equality and equity available. So that would be my take for the future, and I dream for that.
Right. Dr. Kalpana, how do you see the future, keeping in mind the current discussion that we had? What do you think is, how should women be thinking about, be it corporates, be it public sector? What are your thoughts?
Okay. I foresee a lack of uniformity. So what I mean by that is that there are going to be some sectors or some organizations which are considered top tier. So they get to cherry pick the best. And they also get to cherry pick in terms of their own values or their own principles. Let it be sustainability or let it be gender equity. They can choose to actually operationalize what they believe in. So this is what will apply to whatever is considered top tier. It could be the IIMs, and I think across sectors this is what is going to happen. And then there's the second tier. Now it could be a second tier or third tier in terms of geography. So it could be a tier 2 city, or in terms of sector. So manufacturing vis-a-vis IT. So here they will get what is left. So they would, willy-nilly will not have the kind of pick and choose which they could exercise for very long. Now they are going to get whoever is left over in terms of, but on this side I see one opportunity, that there would be more gender diversity. in these second-tier organizations, which were, generally neglected both in public discourse and, academic discourse. We generally tend not to look at, the second tier, so to say. Now, I think, and therefore there was no compulsion on them to create a diverse workforce. But since they would not be able to now cherry pick anymore, probably the more diversity would enter. In government, I see something else happening, and this is already happening. When I entered government, and which is way back 35 years ago, it we stayed for life. One of the perks of being in government was that you had a lifelong job. Today, youngsters enter, they serve maybe a decade, and then they are out. So it's not pervasive yet, but it's happening more and more. So after working in government, there are some daring souls who, I branched off, let us say, into something like volunteering and academics while I was in service. So I've been on a dual track for a very long time now, since my IIMB days. But I now find that people, there is an increasing number who are work for a decade, they get the experience, and then they move on to some other profession. It could be the private sector, and it could be academics. By and large, it has been these two. A few also go into the charity or the voluntary sector. They set up or they join an NGO. So these are the two changes that I see happening. It's happened. The second one, which I spoke of, is happening more with the men than the women. I have not seen so many women moving out of government, but I think there have been rare. Maybe you can count on the fingers of one hand. But I think this will inevitably cut across gender boundaries, and people will start moving cross sectorally. So they will move from government into private sector or academics. So that is going to happen. So these are the two trends which I see going to happen, which I foresee.
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Ramachandra, how about you? How do you think the future is shaping up in terms of gender inclusivity, especially if you could reflect on the work that you have done, in your book as well? Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Ramana. So more than compulsion, I think it's genuine business need that will really lead to sustainable inclusivity. Because regulation, reporting of male-female ratio, all those numbers will only take us so far. I don't think it'll be sustainable. But if you look at the future of work, I spoke about hybrid work, where you work is not going to matter. So in such an ideal world where there is a level play field, I think there'll be a genuine need for diversity depending on the sector. Just to give you an example, manufacturing of electric vehicles in Tamil Nadu, for example, women are preferred. I think 43 or 45%, I forget the number of women in Tamil Nadu are into manufacturing. It's a state which has a very high level of women in manufacturing. So that's just one example. Again, coming back to future of work in more of a white collar job, we talk about artificial intelligence getting integrated into work. So these are future roles will genuinely need diversity, left thinking, right thinking. Again, it need not be in terms of gender, but eventually it will lead to that. So more than compulsion, I think business leaders will feel the genuine need to have diversity, and that will lead to a more inclusive society where women are given equal opportunity. They get roles which they are really good at doing. They don't have to be stereotyped. So that's the way I see the future of work.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So closing thoughts by you, Shreya. How do you envision the future?
So I would agree with Mr. Ramachandran in saying that it absolutely the future of work, and in fact the present as well. From what we have seen, absolutely has to be beneficial for businesses. This is not about telling businesses that if you hire women, then you'll be getting karma points. It's not about that at all. I mean, there are business cases for diversity. and going forward, the skill basically, and like he also spoke before, is going to be the currency that helps businesses to actually be able to hire more women. Apart from other factors like being able to quickly hire, being able to hire from a pool that may not be available in the traditional full-time workforce. So it has to absolutely make sense for the business and be beneficial for them. I think apart from that, the other trend that we see all the time, and this is across genders, is the way that people's relationship with work is changing today. As more and more young people are coming into the workforce, they don't want to do the whole grind of the 12 hours and the commute the way that we've envisaged our office places to be. We see that all the time in the work that we do, that more and more people want to have autonomy on their time. They want to define their own schedules, and that doesn't mean that they don't want to work. They want to work, and many of them want to work to the extent that they believe is right for them. So people are also very aware that if I am putting in this much, what am I getting out of it? So in that sense, it's a new world out there for businesses. They have to figure out how really to attract the best talent. And the best talent today may not want to come and work for you in spite of you paying them top dollar, because they want a little bit of flexibility. They want to do a side, they have a passion on the side which they want to also invest time, or they could have a family that they want to prioritize. And you as a business need to be geared and forward thinking enough to be able to cater to that, as well as be okay with a certain segment of people not giving their entire life and soul to you, as used to be, say, the case with our parents' generation, or to an extent even with our generation. So as a business, how do you make yourself an employer of choice to these group of people, whether it is through purpose or whether you are okay with them having a slightly more transactional relationship with you, as long as they are bringing their A game and their best skills. So these are all considerations that organizations need to think about beyond what we are hearing today about come to office and don't come to office, and all those things are just very antiquated. In how we see work developing, and conversations need to happen today about how to hire, how to use the currency that is important for the workforce to hire the best. And as far as women are concerned, we are already seeing it. And I'm going to say that more and more we will see women upping their game. Whether it is that they want to work 5 hours a day, we have seen that women bring their best when they come in terms of productivity and in terms of skills. They upskill themselves, and that is what is going to change the game for them. On one hand, organizations' willingness and need to give them that flexibility. On the other hand, the inherent ambition that women come with in upskilling themselves, keeping them in with the times. And I am positive, I'm confident that in the next few years, we will actually see a much better workforce participation in India and beyond.
Yeah, agree with you on that. Excellent. All right, I think we've had a great, insightful discussion. Let's open up to the audience for any questions.
Hi, this is Asha. So, I am someone who worked in the traditional construction industry, like road construction, apartment construction, and all that. So I found that as a girl, it is very difficult to, in these traditional industries, to at least recognize that you are someone who is eligible, or just to get people to listen to you. So, and I'm also someone who is, looking forward to going back to that industry because my family business is in that. So, what are your recommendations, that could help women aiming to achieve leadership roles in these sectors that are essentially traditionally dominated by men?
Okay. So, Mr. Ramachandra, do you want to take that? So the question is, how can we have more women involved in traditionally male-dominated sectors?
Yeah, I think more and more of mechanization and automation is going to lead to a situation where gender doesn't matter. So it's not about the physical strength, right? So construction, manufacturing, where we used to operate cranes, forklifts, right? So I think that is slowly moving away. Automation could be one lever because of which women also find it easier. It becomes a level play field. That's the way I see it. mechanization, automation, where it is more of your brain than your brawn. You don't need muscles to operate or to work, right? Whatever be the industry. So white collar jobs already it is there, but in other areas, I think Ms. Arsha spoke about construction or such traditional industries where generally men may have an advantage, but increasing levels of mechanization and automation, I think that will lead to a situation where women also have an equal play field to excel in those roles. So that's the way I see it going forward. I hope I answered her question.
Yes, pretty much but more than about the physical strength, I think, what I face to is it's about the perception about women, that women don't belong there.
So perception, I think it will change with role models, right? I don't want to name anybody, but whatever be the function, right? I can always think of a woman who has excelled in the role. I think India as a society, we need more awareness about such role models on both sides, among girls who are in school and college, among women, even on the men's side, because that's one way, like you said, to break the stereotype that women are not capable of doing it. Then you can very well say, if this person has done it in this organization, why can't I do it? So I think building this awareness of role models, like the book I spoke about earlier, Women in STEM, which CII published. So that was the main reason behind doing it. How many of us really know about the excellent work that Dr. Tessie Thomas or Mrs. Ella have done in Biocon, right? So I think spreading awareness about such role models, because these are very rare people, unfortunately. Maybe in a more developed society like US or in Europe, you may have more such role models, but here we may have few. But I'm pretty sure whatever be the field, whatever be the industry, we will find women who have excelled in it. So maybe building awareness on both sides would be one approach where we are lacking. Doing that could help address the challenge that you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Can I just add to that? And in fact, to what Mr. Ramachandran said, there is one excellent.
I could add to.
Dr. Kalpana, Shreyas is also talking. We'll come back to you after that. Yeah, Shreyas, continue.
Shreya.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I stopped. Yeah, I stopped.
Oh, okay. So actually, I wanted to give an example of a company that has done very well at bringing women more into jobs that are traditionally male dominated. That is Tata Motors, which is doing a very good job with helping creating this news about women manning their manufacturing plants and a whole women-led facility which is now working on some of their more skilled rollouts. I'm sure there are many ways and many small things and innovations that they've done in terms of how the payouts go to how they manage at times when women need say a little bit of flexibility in having daycares and creches on premise. So there is a lot to learn actually from some of these examples as well into bringing women into more traditional and male dominated spaces.
Correct. So I was in a discussion in Hosur last week. So again, I don't want to name the organization, but the big OEMs that are there in Hosur. So they were actually talking among themselves. What practices do you do to bring more women into work power? So if this is happening in auto, which is core manufacturing, I'm pretty sure it's just a matter of time, because women bring discipline. They have their own advantages when you talk about manufacturing. I worked on the shop floor. So I think business leaders are realizing it. So like I said, more than compulsion, it'll be genuine business need, the advantages that women genuinely bring to it. So I think that awareness is already there. So once we bring in a mechanism like a recruitment mechanism, how do you qualify them? What are the skills? Once all that becomes commonly, once the awareness is there among business leaders, I think it's just a question of time. It's going to pick up and we'll see more and more women. Like Shreya said, Tata Motors is one example. The Tamil Nadu EV industry I spoke about, specific belts like Hosur, Chennai are already seeing a lot of this growing. So I think we'll see more of this happening going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Dr. Kalpana, you also wanted to share something? Dr. Kalpana, can you hear us?
Yeah, other than the systemic changes which spoken of, the I would say
Your voice is breaking again, Dr. Kalpana. We can't hear you. Okay, I think we'll come back to her. Any other questions?
Good evening, ma'am. I had a question for Dr. Kalpana, but I think we can ask other panel members. So what, according to you, are some of the key elements for enhancing women participation, especially in the government sector and especially in the public policy making domain? So can you share some views or insights into that?
Okay. So who would want to take it up? Ramachandran?
I think Dr. Kalpana would be best
The
qualified
best
to answer
person
that.
to answer, yes.
Correct.
But we lost her, I think.
Yeah. So I don't have any specific thoughts on public policy. I haven't worked much. Whatever I mentioned, most of it apply for public policy also. Probably it's a sector where changes can happen faster compared to the private sector. That could be one advantage. Maybe they are closer to policymakers, closer to politicians, to government. So maybe that could be one which would see faster adoption. I spoke out some of the public sector organizations where I've interacted with some leaders. So very good example. So like I said, their proximity to leadership, political leadership and policymakers may be an advantage for them. Beyond that, I think Dr. Kalpana would be able to
Yeah, she would be the
talk about. Yeah.
Dr. Kalpana, are you there? Okay.
Ma'am, I had a question for
Yes.
Ms. Shreya and Ms. Kapila, if both of you could pitch in for this. So, we talked a lot about how the ecosystem and the society can change for how, women can be accepted. I also I expect that change to be very slow, and I don't expect that to happen, say, in 2025 when, we'll graduate. So for, young women managers who are now going to be leading teams, primarily male dominated teams, can you give us some tips on how to break that initial friction or initial resistance that typically women managers face, and how can we kind of develop more harmony in the team and quickly transition?
So,
Yeah,
Shreya,
anyone
I
can
want
take
to
it up. Yeah.
I can tell you from my experience, because being the manager in mostly the team coming from electronic engineering front, there were very, very, very few female electronic engineers were there, and I was leading a team majorly for one. Again, and in my answers, I always say that there are two types of barrier, right? One which we getting one message on my side that your internet is unstable, but you hear me right?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear
It's
you.
okay?
Cutting
You
out
can
a
hear
bit.
me?
Yeah, now it's perfect. Yeah, please carry on.
Okay, so I always say that there are two barriers. One is what is being created by the legacy, history, and ancient times, and that is going on and on, and it's just a breaking those stereotyping and the thought process, changing the ecosystem. But there is something which we have put in our head also, that it might be difficult. Trust me, as and when I went on my job with full confidence, by knowing that I know my topic and I know how to unlearn and learn, and I am ready to learn something new, and I'm going with that feeling where I'm not superior to anybody, but I'm not inferior to anybody. Anytime and every time it worked. You have to start from yourself, and that has helped me in any job I have done and any role I have taken. So, and the people are more resilient than we think, right? The system around us catches very, very fast, and it becomes so easy to adapt that it's the initial inertia. Do not shy away, first of all, to give your thoughts and point forward. Do not shy to challenge, and do not shy to bring your point and voice out your opinion very, very loud and clear manner, so that it's been heard, that it makes a point with it, which is definitely would be data driven, and you are talking and making a point which would be. So first thing is the battle within you that has to be fought, that you are talking to a room which is full of men, and many of them are many senior than you, because we are talking about managers. So I had a team who were double the experience of mine were coming, and you have to have that respect, right? Because the person who is coming to you is an expert person, and you have a different kind of expertise as a leadership, and hence the organization has trusted in you. So both of you have something which is making you where you are, and bringing that mutual trust will take you far. So for sure, one is that barrier has to go within you. But if you think it's not working and you find that there are challenges, you need to work it out on a 80-20 ratio. You would trust me, you will believe that 80 times the problem is not there. There are some 20% problem where it exists, and you need to work on those 20 differently. So different way and different situation need to be handled, but do not, you would be definitely successful, Simran. Thank you for the question, and Shreya, you can add on that.
Thank you.
First of all the best to you, Simran. Hope you do extremely well. And I actually agree with a lot of what Kapila said. So my experience also, by the beginning 3-4 years of my life, I was doing sales in Unilever. And I was an area sales manager for rural Maharashtra. I had a team of around 30, sales professionals, hardcore sales, veteran professionals, whereas I was just coming out of B school. And, not only my sales professionals, 50 distributors sitting in, remote areas in Maharashtra, and I'm supposed to lead this team, right? But like Kapila said, there has to be mutual respect. You've been chosen by the company because you bring something to the table. And equally, they bring something entirely different to the table, and that mutual respect goes a long way. The other thing is that, you have to put in the grind, you have to, earn their respect beyond what, beyond the initial, say latent benefit of doubt that they will give because you've been chosen by the company. In the job itself, you have to show that you are, delivering to their expectation. And, once that starts happening, the gender and all this, is not important. But even then, if there are people, there could be people specific, issues and problems, then you have to, approach it like any manager would in any situation. Figure out, what those people, what kind of problems they may be having, and you'll have to iron out those problems one-to-one, perhaps. Build allies in the team, people who will, who are with you, and then, there'll be one or two who you have to figure out. Maybe they have something, specific that's irking them in your managerial style or with the company, and you have to, take, again, like Kapila said, take off the gender hat. It could happen to any manager in that situation. So yeah, the only additional thing I would add is that don't be afraid to set boundaries, because maybe not for you, you're, fairly young, but at this point in time, if I were to go into a managerial role with a team of men, I know I have a family back home, I have a kid, so it's not always possible perhaps for me to spend, every night out, with the team. And I would say that should be the case even for, the men, who have families. But, so then in that case, I would set certain boundaries. There would be times I would be willing to go out with them, but I would also have times when I need to come back. So yeah, those boundaries would help.
Thank you.